you looking for affordable office space in Marion? The professional building located at 685 Delaware Avenue is the place for you. For more information, call 740-383-6803. Office space is now available. Again, telephone number 740-383-6803. This is Scott Spears, and today I'm joined by a great citizen of Marion and Concepcion Morris to talk about Marion Catholic's impending closing, running a small business in Marion, and a health bout, which we'll get into as we progress. Ann, it's such a pleasure to have you here today. Wanted to do this for a while, and things have been busy, but I'm glad we finally got it done.
Thanks for having me. I'm pretty honored. I feel very VIP and special to be here.
Well, you know, Ann, a lot of people know you in the community. I think you've touched a lot of people through small business, community involvement, your family. For people who don't know, who are your family members?
Well, I'm married with 2 children, Tony Morris, and then I have 10-year-old Caden and 6-year-old Corley who go to the Catholic schools. My father, Roberto, is a urologist, and my mom, Jackie, is volunteer of the year in the city. And my brother also, my younger brother, Robert, works for Merrill Lynch here.
And I don't want to get too touchy in the beginning, but just lost your grandfather, who was a very well-known person here in Marion.
Yes, thank you. I really haven't, I don't feel like I've had a chance to mourn his loss with everything going on, but yeah, we did just lose him.
Now, for people who don't know, who was he?
He was a urologist as well. My dad took over his practice, and he, as I understand it, was a founding member of the Smith Clinic, one of the original doctors that started there.
I know when he passed away recently, a lot of people certainly were going to miss him, had a special relationship, and I think maybe that's the thread that runs throughout your family. Mm-hmm. I think people don't feel, it doesn't feel like doctor-patient or booster or whatever. It just feels like a friendship, which is nice.
Yeah, I have heard some wonderful stories about my grandfather as a urologist and surgeon. I've heard that he was much different than my dad, bedside manner-wise, but my grandfather, that was a lot of what we talked about at the funeral, and my uncle, who's also a urologist in Nashville, gave a great eulogy.
Do you think that has something to do with age? I think maybe as we get into the computer age, we're not as personable as maybe we once were.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, the clinics have gone to where the doctors just type it all out right there in front of you, whereas before you walked in, you had the conversation with them, and then you went outside and dictated. So, possibly.
Yeah, I think it might have something to do with that. Well, Ann, when did you come to Marion, and just talk a little bit about your childhood.
I think I was, well, it was first grade I came to Marion. I was born in Toledo, but both my mom and dad went to high school here. My dad went to Marion Catholic and my mom to Harding, and my dad did his residency in Toledo, and then we were in Dyersburg, Tennessee for a little while for my dad to work, and then we came back when I was in first grade, and my dad started practicing with, or took over for my grandpa. So the first thing I remember about Marion is starting first grade at St. Mary's and becoming best friends with Michael Ebo, Dr. Ebo's son, and growing up in the Catholic school.
And we certainly will get to that, because I know a lot of people are going to be very sad as we progress to the closing of Marian Catholic here in about a month. But before we get to that, how would you say, because there's a lot of talk of this, of people who've been around Marion for a long time, how would you say Marion has changed in the last 30 years?
Well, I'm only 31, so Marion's changed for me, obviously. I think when we're younger, we see small town and we think, I want to get out of here. And our perception of Marion, at least mine, is negative. You know, I want to go do bigger things. I want to be somebody in a big town and that type of mentality. Specifically, I don't know that Marion has changed. I didn't follow the news that I follow now. I'm more aware of the drug issues, the school issues, Marion city government. You know, I'm more into that now that I'm older. So I don't know really how it's changed, but I know my perception of Marion is different as a mother, as a small business owner. I'm comfortable here. I like raising my kids here. There's some things we could change that I'd like to see different, of course. But while it's gotten bigger for sure, I don't notice those changes as much.
I thought you said something very important there. You feel safe and comfortable here for yourself and to raise your kids. A lot of people, I think, who possibly have never lived here, if they watched the news and paid attention, maybe wouldn't feel the same way.
Agreed.
Why do you feel that way?
Well, just for instance, someone visiting me from the Newark area, the Hebron area of Ohio, you know, they're seeing the heroin stories, taking the main news for Marion. And if that's all you see and that's all you hear, because you're not really here a lot, then that's your perception. Oh, it's a drug town. Maybe it is. I mean, to be between Columbus and Cleveland and Detroit, and from the things that float around and we hear, maybe it is. But I think these problems exist in a lot of the communities. And so if that's all you're hearing and all you're seeing, then that's all you're getting. But being in this town, being an active community member, being part of my children's schools, that's not what consumes my life or my kids. So I don't see it like that.
I think it must be, and I've said this to people, it must be in the circles you travel in, because I don't see it either.
Right.
Which, good
right,
by
good
me.
For us.
Yeah. Good for me and good for you. Yeah. You talked a little bit about Marian Catholic there, and it was, to me, I mean, I knew things were not well, not being on the inside of the school or having anybody who goes there, but I had talked over the past few years with Fran Vol and a lot of people involved there, and I could tell things had not been in the upswing in the last maybe 5 or 10 years. Marian Catholic's going to close. It came out of the blue to me.
It came out of the blue to me.
Yeah.
I think it came out of the blue to a lot of the Catholic community. And I by no means am a representative directly of what's going on there, but I speak as a church member, as a parent, as a former student, that I think it came out of the blue. I understood that there was a 4-year plan. They didn't give the full 4 years. I understood and still do that there's an endowment, that there's money. And so I think the entire community was shocked, the Catholics included.
Was there anything that could have been done? Did anybody have any notice? Because that's what I kind of felt, that I don't think anybody realized that, hey, you know, the doors are going to shut within 3 months of the announcement, and people really didn't have a chance to get out and maybe campaign hard for a great institution.
Right. Again, I speak only from what I know, and it was a huge shock. I understand it came from the diocese. Not to get too much into it, but Marian Catholic is operated by the diocese, whereas St. Mary's School is a parish, operated by the church. And so this decision came from higher than Marion, came from the bishop and Columbus. And, we had just had the annual auction that I attended where we raise, I mean, it raises huge funds for that school and for tuition assistance. And yes, class sizes are dwindling. And yes, everyone, you know, it was no secret that something needed to be done. And but as far as a closure that quickly, again, everyone's just shocked.
I know it seems trite, but I keep hearing this from people also. Maybe because it's located on 95 and everybody sees, but this new sign was just put up out front,
Yeah.
and now here the doors are closing within a year.
The sign was a gift, or so I understand it. It was funds were raised by the Knights of Columbus, um, the group of men that support the Catholic schools in every capacity. And from, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but I've heard that they'll move it.
Hmm. Hopefully they'll be able, because it's
to use
a
it.
beautiful sign.
Well, I mean, this is, I don't know if you want to go there with this, but the hope, at least for parents of young children, and a lot of us are hoping that the grade school will be moved to the high school building. So the sign wouldn't need moved if that happened, but from what I understand, it won't be this year, and it may never be.
The grade school, I think, has obviously not gotten as much attention because it will continue.
Mm-hmm.
And it is in a different part of town that isn't as visited as much as Route 95.
Right.
What kind of condition is the grade school in? I'm sure sufficient enough to operate.
Right. I'll just speak openly with you because that's who I am. But
Yeah.
there's no doubt that the high school building is by far better equipped for a school than the grade school building. It's not handicap accessible downtown at the grade school. It's clearly an older building where the high school used to operate out of. I'm not sure of the year. Obviously, it's kept to code and it's cleaned, but we would love to see the kids operate out of the high school building where green grass grows around it, and that playground equipment could be moved there, and there's a track there, and when I say we, I mean me, but I speak to my circle of friends, and it just seems like a better option. And St. Mary's building, it works, but it's not the best option, in my opinion.
Certainly understand that. Just as a person who attended school there, Catholic, a person with children, what does it mean to see it close personally?
Personally, it's very sad. I didn't end up graduating from there, but that was for social reasons, and at that time, college classes were offered when I went to River Valley. But my brothers graduated from there, my father, my aunt and uncle, my kids, that's where they thought they'd be. It's just personally very sad. I think it's more sad for the community. I mean, I don't think at the end of the day people understand what an excellent option that is for certain children. It isn't for everyone. There are children that excel in arts programs and music programs and other things that maybe Marian Catholic wasn't strongest in, but just for example, I read a blog by Beth Piron, now Beth Swartz, who graduated from there, and I remember her. She was my friend's older sister, that explained that she was a shy person, but she was still a cheerleader, and that option came from going to a school like Marian Catholic, where even if it wasn't your strong suit to start with, it could be, and you were encouraged to do so there. So
I've never attended it, but it certainly made me sad to see that closing happen. And as I've said, I mentioned it on Facebook a couple of times. I hope there is something when it does close, some celebration, because a lot of people are still around who had major ties to that school.
I agree. I hope there is some type of celebration. Unfortunately, the mood right now, I think, is very low.
Yeah, unfortunately. Um, let's move into small business, because I think schools somewhat are tied into the business community in a town. You own and run a small business here, Got Mail. How did that all start?
It all started when my friend Kristen said, Anne, you know what we don't have here? And at that same time frame, my father said, you know, what do you want to do? Let's invest in something. Let's try something. And I was a copy editor for the Marion Star, and that's, you know, I went to school in that arena and loved my job there. Absolutely loved it, but missed bedtime every night with my two kids and had some crazy hours. So I started looking into the mailbox stores and didn't turn back. I agreed that that was something Marion needed, and I thought I could make it happen.
How hard was it to make it happen?
Very hard. It still is hard.
Yeah.
Actually, we are in the process of selling. Marion community has supported us, I think, as much as I could expect, but it isn't a dollar store. It isn't the cheapest. It's a convenience. It's somewhere to go when you don't want to wait in line. It's customer service. It's something people have maybe don't want to pay for. That we can some of the things we do. So it's been very hard.
Is it hard to sell?
It is hard to
Yeah.
sell. We've been in negotiation for a while. So it looks like it's going to happen May 1st, though.
Is it personally hard to sell? You spend a lot of hours there.
I don't think if I hadn't gotten sick, I don't think I'd ever sell. It was a business that I understood it. I would operate it. If I was lucky, I'd get to have an employee, and which I did. But if I could go in every day and work the way I wanted to, I don't think I'd ever sell it.
What was fun about it? Because it seemed like you were having fun doing it.
What I didn't expect, and what was and is still fun, is I got to meet someone new every day, or I got to have customers come in every day and they really needed us. They really liked coming in, and we became friends. What I didn't expect that. I didn't expect to have those personal relationships, having never really been in retail or that type of business. And just for example, and I posted it on the Got Mail Facebook the other day, in one day when I was only open 4 hours because I had a treatment that day, I met someone who was a survivor and wanted to talk about it and was open, and then I met someone whose father wasn't a survivor and wanted to talk about it. And opposite ends of the spectrum, and just really what I needed that day. And whether they needed it or not, I don't know, but they wanted to talk. So
Will you miss going to work?
well, I'm probably still going to go to work for these new owners, but not on the capacity I have. So yes, I'll miss it, definitely.
I call it a success, because
Thank you.
well, I really do, and no hedging, because the truth is that it was such a unique idea, I thought, because it's post office, but it has done well by my standard in a horrible economic climate.
Right.
Horrible. And I mean, there's no secret that Marion is always rated in these depressed surveys very low
Right.
financially. That's tough. So it leads me to this question. How successful, and this is obviously just forecasting, do you think you would have been if this was 1993 and not 2013?
I opened at the worst time and I had no idea. I mean, we opened in August of '07 and then things just tanked. So I want to believe that if it was a different time, things would be totally different. But to say we're still open during these times is also, by my terms, a success. Um, so I think it would have been better in another time, but um, we live and we learn, right?
That's right.
So,
and onward and upward.
that's right.
Being, last question here as far as small business goes, because I think that still is to some degree the American dream, to own and
Yeah.
run your business.
Right.
What advice would you give to somebody who wants to do it?
It's a hard time for me to answer that question, seeing as that I'm having to let my small dream go. You know, I had an awesome opportunity to be my own boss and to own my own business and to call the shots and make the decisions. And it truly is a dream, because if you can't get to work, there's no one there that's going to yell at you. So I encourage people greatly to pursue their dreams in that respect. However, with some severe caution as well, because sometimes going to work for someone that can make sure you have your paycheck in this day and age so that you can feed your children and pay your payments is not all that bad. You know, it gets the jobs done. But of course, you know, like just for example, Nathan down at Nathan's Barbershop has an amazing talent and has pursued his dream with that barbershop, and I see no reason Marion shouldn't be supporting someone like that. I mean, with a talent and their own business. So
Here's a beach ball of a question. Do you think Marion supported you? Not the community, but the upper echelon, politician area, the other businesses, those chamber, things like that.
you know, I was a member of the chamber. It's a hard call. I definitely felt support. Whether that translates into dollars, I'm not sure. But I felt it. You know, people want you to succeed. At least most people. They want to see Marion's businesses do well. Unfortunately, sometimes they just don't. So, yes and no.
It's tough. It's very tough, and I'm not sure what the reason for that is, but I would agree. I'm not sure if it's because the businesses that were local are now corporately owned. I'm not sure what causes that atmosphere, but I agree. It's very hard to come in as a independently owned business and try to, it's not even about competing with the other businesses. It's just getting the community to support you. They seem very into their way.
Right, and that is one thing, let me clarify, and still is in question by a customer that might have been in there 20 times. We are not in competition with the post office even. We are offering their services, and their numbers are going up because we produced that day. And we are the only FedEx in the Marion area, and with the new owners still will be. And so on that level 2 of corporate, you may see a FedEx sign, but that's not a FedEx business. That's not a corporate business. That's a family owned and still will be operated business, and has people working in there that live in your community. They're your neighbors, and you're supporting. So,
just for people who are curious, do you know about when the transition should take place?
it should be May 1st.
May 1st. And I do want to get a plug in for it because I do like it and I am in support of it. What is Got Mail for people who don't know? What can they get done there?
Got Mail, it offers postal service, USPS, and FedEx shipping. We also accept UPS drop-off, so if you already have a label with UPS, we have a great relationship with them as well. But our main service is if you don't have the box for it, you don't have the bubble wrap, we pack for you. There's no charge for that. There's the charge for what we need to use to do so. And it's also your community office. You know, not everyone has a fax machine, so you can have your fax sent to us. You can come and fax with us. That faxing is still huge, which boggles my mind, but it is. If you don't have a scanner, we can handle that for you. Secure shredding, notary. As far as I know, we're the only ones that advertise that we always have a notary in. Just a lot of office things we can do for you. We get a lot of requests every day. That's not something that's on our price list, but you know, copies, faxing, notary, and the shipping is obviously the biggest thing.
Located right behind Red Lobster in the Marion Plaza. Check it out because I found it very handy. I thought the location was good, and for me as a Marion citizen, and I mean the prices were not as outrageous as I think maybe people blow it up to be. Seemed fine to me.
Thank you.
Yeah, I visited.
I remember.
I was in there a few times.
Good.
Now we'll get to I think probably the most important part of this interview at this point in your life. And it kind of came up to me, and I'm sure as an outsider, just paying attention on the internet kind of quickly. Because last year I remember you came to the radio station in May, and I had no idea.
I didn't either.
It's that, yeah. Well, we'll start off with that then. How did this all start, and what exactly happened?
So
health-wise?
In July, after I saw you, in July, I was doing a self-breast exam at home, and when I was 19, I had had 2 lumps removed that were non-cancerous. So I felt a little knowledgeable about what I was doing. I did it all the time, or so I thought. Went to my yearly checkups. But in July, in doing that self-breast exam, I felt something out of the ordinary. But it isn't how you hear people describe, I felt a lump. But whatever I felt I didn't like on my left breast. So I said to myself, just go to the doctor, that way you're not worried about it. So I don't know how many weeks it took me to get there, but it was probably 2. And I went to my gynecologist, and he couldn't feel it. And having just switched insurances and being, you know, self-employed in medical insurance, he said, well, I'm going to send you for an ultrasound. I said, if you don't feel it, I'm not paying for that, you know. In my head, I'm fine, or wanting to believe everything's fine. And he said, you know, we don't always feel what you felt. And so I went for an ultrasound in August. At that ultrasound, the doctor was adamant that something was wrong and I needed to have a mammogram right away. So I had it that same day. And I'd never had a mammogram, being only 31. So did that as well. He brought me in to view the mammogram the same day. I really didn't know what I was looking at. He was good about explaining it, but I really didn't understand. All I heard was, we're suggesting a biopsy and surgery right away. So I really didn't get all upset having had those 2 small lumps removed when I was 19. In fact, it became kind of a joke. My dad is a lymphoma survivor. And so we, you know, made light of it for the most part. On August 16th, I went for a surgical biopsy where they took out 5 centimeters of tumor. And on August 21st, Dr. Valley confirmed it was breast cancer.
In that moment, when Dr. Valley says that, what do you feel? What runs through your mind?
Immediately, I was crying, and immediately you think, get it out. I don't need these anymore. I don't want them. There's cancer there. Just take them off. And there's so many unanswered questions in the beginning that that's all I really recall, other than saying to my family, I don't need coddled right now. I don't need hugs and love. Take care of my kids, and I'll deal with what I have to deal with. Just that immediate reaction is what happened with me.
When that moment came after you had realized that this was the diagnosis, what action was taken?
So it takes a while for, I mean, even though he brought me in on the 21st, 4 days after the biopsy, there's still a lot of unknowns, a lot of tests to come back, and whether I'm pronouncing it right, BRCA or BRCA genetic testing had to be done. All these things to see what you do next. So I went home and thought, okay, I'm sure we caught this early. I'm just going to have surgery and this is all going to be fine. The reality was Dr. Valley sent me to OSU, and I don't recall how this all went, but I had a double mastectomy in October, and that was agreed upon by the surgeon there and the oncologist to do first. And I believe that was because my tumor size was already so large from the biopsy. A 5 is considered pretty big, and they wanted to get out whatever else was in there. And what they took out was another almost 3.5 to 4, so total of 9 centimeters almost, which is very large. But they did get clear margins, so that was a positive. However, it had spread to 7 of 24 lymph nodes that they took out. From there, once your tumor size is that large and your lymph nodes are involved, you're automatically in for chemo and radiation. So I've completed 13 chemos of 16 is where I'm at in the process. And my understanding is that I will have scans after chemo's complete in about a month, and then I will have 6 weeks of radiation every day.
When the double mastectomy happens, and I know you say don't need these anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Does it affect you in any way?
Of course it does. Of course it does. I'm a tomboy to an extent, but, and don't get me wrong, being bald has some great attributes like being able to shower quicker. But when you take a woman's breasts and her hair simultaneously at 31, it's crazy. It's beyond explainable. I didn't think it'd bother me. I knew I wasn't going to like it, but unfortunately I wasn't a candidate for reconstruction right away because I have to do the radiation. Some women get them taken off and get new ones right away. I wasn't an option for me. So do I have perks of not wearing a bra and not having to wash my hair? Yeah, they really are fun for this limited time, but I hope that changes.
At 31 years old, to have this go on, I cannot imagine. What does it do to your mindset? How is life different today than it was a year ago? Getting up in the morning.
It's surreal. It's honestly, some days I don't know how I got up that morning. Um, for the most part, my friends don't know how I got up that morning because they don't think they'd get up. And some mornings I don't get up.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it hurts too bad. Um, but the majority of the mornings I get up. And I totally believe that I had my children so early. Caden came when I was 21 and Corley's 6. Um, this was the plan. This was known. Because obviously now it's not suggested that I have children, so my kids get me up. I have to get them to school. But yeah, a year ago, I had no idea. And every day is, you truly do wake up now and say, thanks for waking me up, God. Okay, now what am I going to do?
Yeah.
So.
Chemotherapy.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
For people who've never been through it
Mm-hmm.
or are about to go through it, this happens so often now.
Mm-hmm.
What's it like? How does it make you feel?
There's definitely, it's come so far from what you and I may have heard about it years ago. I have not been that ill at all. The amount of pre-meds they give you for nausea is substantial. So they're working hard in that research area to make sure we're not getting sick because, then it's not doing its job. So I have had a very, I would say, great experience with chemo. The first 4 rounds is, I don't know the full name, but it's AC, and it's considered a very high dose, I guess, toxic, medicine to kill these bad cells. And other than some bone pain, which was tolerable, I really did okay. And then the one I've been on now for more of the treatment is Taxol, and not really had a problem at all. I don't think it's the same for everyone. I think, unfortunately, some people's bodies don't accept it as well. And then I think some people have done better than me, where I have it on Thursdays and I'm exhausted and a little down for the weekend. But it is not like it used to be, from what I understand.
When the doctor went in and they did the double mastectomy and said they were going to be chemotherapy and they'll go back and check, what is the prognosis? What was the early prognosis for this?
It's interesting. The doctors are amazing. The prognosis is considered positive, I think, for all patients. Cancer's so, while there's protocol and there's things you do and things you don't, it's so different for each person. And the same girl who could be sitting next to me with the same diagnosis, we could have completely different outcomes. It's still so questionable. So my prognosis has always been positive from the medical doctors. Unfortunately, you read things and you look into it, and I have stage 3B breast cancer. I have lymph node involvement. I have had a tumor that was large, and so I don't want to be negative, but my life expectancy, I don't think, is what I thought it was going to be. And that's based on reoccurrence. I could reoccur or not, which is obviously the hope, but women and men can get it too, but basically they hope to see you clear for 5 years. So if I hit that 5-year mark, then you're looking good, but they really don't know until that 5-year mark.
Of course, I mean, I think most people would say there is fear involved.
Hmm.
Um, what kind of fear is it once you settle into the process?
In the beginning, it's huge because there's so many unanswered questions. What kind is it? Where are my lymph nodes? I didn't know they were involved until after the surgery was over. In the beginning, it's huge because you have so many questions unanswered. And then you get involved in the walks and your friends just do amazing things like bring you dinners, and your parents step up and help you in every capacity, and people wear pink and you love pink, and things everything around you is supportive and positive. So it kind of fades and your fear is masked by, I'm going to beat this. Of course I am. Why wouldn't I? I mean, that's how we should look at life. But it's crept back in now because as I get closer to the end of treatment, the expectation is that it worked. And I don't know that. And people asking if you're okay and seeing your smile and seeing that you are okay makes them feel better. I've got new fear because the treatment's almost over. And that treatment being over means I'm supposed to be better. And I'm not better in every respect. I may be better and there may not be cancer in my chest, but mentally it's been exhausting. Physically it's draining. So it's a new fear that I'm just starting to deal with as far as, okay, chemo's almost done. What will radiation be like? I've heard different things like skin irritations and exhaustion. But I could be totally different, so.
As far as fear goes and just life adjustment because of the treatments, certainly very difficult. Personally, how does this change the way you look at your life in general? And is there fear in that respect?
It completely does. Things that used to be a big deal are no longer. You realize what you're capable of. Because in no respect, if someone told me I had to deal with everything that I've dealt with this year all at once, would I even think I could take it on. I'm not sure that I totally understand all that cancer's done to me, but it definitely opens your eyes. In the beginning, I started blogging and I said, foods taste better, smells are sweeter. You just start to take notice of a lot of things that you wouldn't have on any given day or in any given moment. My daughter singing, that's sometimes obnoxious. Well, now it's just great. Yeah. So there's definitely, I don't see how anyone could say that there isn't a total change of life, everything's put in perspective.
Are you angry in any way?
I was. I was. And God probably gets a prayer just about every day from me that telling him that I really wish he'd stop thinking I was so strong. I'm not angry at him, and I'm not angry with, I'm not angry. I am, I still do occasionally ask why. More off, I did realize, having grown up in this community, having very close friends still, as much as people knock Facebook, it's been awesome to just get those little notes those little emails, having my Facebook group where people can say things of how I've had an impact on them. There's obviously ones that just come through and say, "How are you?" And those are wonderful. But then there's certain ones on certain days from random people that I might not have seen in years that say, "You don't understand what you've done." And I have to believe that if they reached out and were saying that something I did or something I'm going through impacted them in some way. And it's hard to believe that you have that type of impact on someone, but it's humbling also. So,
What do you see the next 20 years being like?
for me, having read all that on the internet the other night, like I shouldn't have, I hope I'm here. I do. And if I am, I would I would love to be actively involved in one of, whether it's Susan G. Komen or um, whether it's just local and traveling to each school and talking about self breast exams. I don't see me getting out of this round. I'm involved and it's all I think about, and if I can help or talk about breast cancer or any, before that it was lymphoma with my father. I think that I was chosen. I do. I think that there was a reason it was me, and I want to be active in that way somehow.
Well, I want to ask this question because I think people don't talk about this enough just in general, and I think that's why it's such a hard thing for a lot of people to even hear. But to come firsthand is very important. I think you're going to be here for a long time. Absolutely. So let me preface it with that. But facing something like this, where my goodness, a lot of people do meet their end,
Right.
unfortunately.
No, I understand.
Are you fearful of that?
Not right now. Not right now because my children have some great grandparents. I've got amazing friends. Things would be okay without me here. Would my children? That's the biggest thing that would hurt, is to not see them do the things they're gonna do. So yes, it makes me teary to the thought of it, but I do believe. I don't know if you've seen Letters to God, about the young little boy who writes to God every day, and in that movie, his friend's grandfather says, "You're a warrior of God, and you were chosen for a reason, and those children that might make fun of you might be jealous because you have your role and you know what you're supposed to do." And so I do really feel like it'd be okay if this was how my end came, because I was chosen to have this disease, chosen to talk about it, chosen to share my story. Even if people don't want to hear it, I'm going to share it because I did find it myself. And I had I not done that self-breast exam, who knows how long it would have been. And so I'd be okay.
So many people are diagnosed with all kinds of cancer all the time. It's terrible. Epidemic. What advice would you give to somebody who's newly diagnosed, or maybe viewing this years from now, who's newly diagnosed?
One of the biggest things that I've learned in just, half a year, whatnot, that I've been dealing with it, is the spectrum of emotions and the from not only what you're feeling, from what your mom's feeling, to what your best friend is feeling, to what people say and do for you, it's huge and it's emotional. It's beyond anything. And to just truly grasp each emotion you're feeling and not get mad at yourself, or not be hard on yourself for maybe feeling low one day. It really is a roller coaster. My friend has been, I guess, documenting some of my quotes, and the one she read to me the other day, I said, "It's a roller coaster. I'm on a roller coaster, and I feel like I'm not wearing my seatbelt." And it is the biggest roller coaster with the most steep hills. And one day you're fine, and the next day you're not. Or 1 hour you're fine, and the next you're not. And so just embrace what you're feeling and not worry that it's not right. I mean, and friends too. They're going to feel things or maybe say things that don't make you feel better, or they make you feel top of the world. But everybody just has to, everybody takes it differently, and I think the important part is you're good to yourself and you allow yourself to truly feel whatever it is that's happening to you.
You know, so often, and we talked about earlier on in this interview about getting out of bed. So many people get up in the morning and they think, oh, I don't want to go to work today. It's too early. I didn't sleep enough last night. When you think of those stories, people who aren't achieving their full potential just maybe because, I don't want to say laziness because I'm not sure that's what it is,
Right.
but just sluggishness.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at those people, what would you say to those people now?
I am not sure. I'm still a little lazy. Obviously, I have a very different perspective on life now, but I have learned through this too that even though the person next to you or your best friend or your neighbor might not be dealing with cancer, whatever they are dealing with, whether it's a drug addiction or a mental illness or, you know, a family member with cancer, or a family member has it and they just are down. Whatever someone else is dealing with is their cancer right then. It really is their life story, their problem, their issue, and while mine may seem bigger to me, they don't understand it the way I do. And my friends might not understand my cancer the way I do. But it is their cancer. And so I would obviously encourage anyone that's possibly just being, you know, negative on the day or the world to really look at themselves and to really look around them and see that we're lucky to be in Marion, Ohio, and not have to worry about clean water or whatnot. Things definitely are brought to perspective when your life is, when you're told your life may not be as long as you thought it would.
When you look at that life today, what do you say about it? What's life been like?
I grew up as a spoiled doctor's daughter, so, you know, I have really zero complaints. I have an amazing mom. I only have one little brother, and really my life, I was given a boy and a girl, and if I look at it like that, I've had a great life. Then I got cancer. But when I heard you ask that question, I could only think of positive. I don't see this as the worst.
A good life.
Yeah.
a good life. Only two more questions,
Sure.
and one is, I think this is a tough one. When it comes to those family members, w- sometimes we deal with our own things a little better than the family does. Seeing how it impacts your family, how does that make you feel?
That's a hard question. I didn't realize the impact it would have on every member of my family, all to different degrees, right away. Because in the beginning we don't know. Like I said, there were so many questions. There's still questions, like I said, with reoccurrence. And for the most part, your family is so positive, they're probably not even thinking about reoccurrence. I mean, I'm going to have these last chemos, have some radiation, and we're going to be done with this. That's not my reality, but I would gather that's theirs. My dad being in the medical field was a major eye opener for me because I asked, well, what if I don't do this treatment? I mean, he was very blunt with me. Then you're not going to survive very long. My mom just does everything she can to make my day easier, whether it's pick the kids up at school or bring me lunch or a specific lunch. So, and then my husband didn't take it well at all. Not at all. And I didn't give it well at all. I didn't have a capacity for this is hurting everyone, not just me in the beginning. Obviously now I do. My friends, the close circle of friends I have, they don't know who's going to call them. Is it going to be crazy Ann who's screaming and bawling and crying about cancer, or is it going to be Ann who just has a simple question? And they've got to be prepared for who they're going to get. So I had no idea in the beginning what effect it would have on my family, but cancer, at least for me, has been very effective on the family.
Well, you've done pretty well today, I'll say that. Pretty difficult stuff to talk about. And I ask this question of everybody, and I believe it's going to be a long way off. Long way. I think you're going to see senior citizen. I think so.
Okay.
But it's all coming for all of us. Right. One day it's all coming. If you could write how you would like to be remembered, what would you say?
Oh, I wish I would have written it out already. Not. In all honesty, I want to call Larry Hall already and make sure everything is mapped out for me, so it's all the way I want it, with pink and yellow flowers, just like my friend Lori. But I don't know word for word what I'd want, but I'd want to make sure that people knew I always tried to do right, and loving wife, daughter, mom, those simple words, and generous, all these great adjectives, kind. Being in Marion, I'd want, people to know I worked at the Star. I'm proud of that. I would want them to know about Got Mail, and hopefully it is far off, and by that point I'll be known for breast cancer research also.
And you'll have to write all this down, because it's been an amazing story.
I think so. I don't know that everyone thinks that way.
I think people would want to read it. I think so, and I think you should do it. You have a lot of time, I think.
Thank you.
I do. And my goodness, it's such difficult stuff to talk about, and I can't thank you enough for coming in, because I do think people who watch this, whenever they watch it, I think it'll be helpful, because you spoke very eloquently about so many difficult things.
Thank you.
And Concepcion Morris, we're going to come back and do this again.
Okay.
In a years.
Thanks
years
for having me.
Thank you. Everybody take care.